people want their subjective preferences to be the objective reality.
You can't handle the truth.
But the closer I get to the ring, I'm more confident. Once I'm in the ring, I'm a god. No one can beat me.
King takes kings.
I told you, all of my critics, I told you all that I was the greatest of all time. When I beat Sonny Liston, I told you today, I'm still the greatest of all time. Never again defeat me. Never again say that I'm going to be defeated. Never again make me the underdog until I'm about 50 years old. Right. Then you might get me.
Welcome back to Fight Night Rewind here on Keep It Real Boxing. I'm Cypherbox and let's get into it. Look, we had a really good fight this weekend. An exciting fight, entertaining fight is what I mean, between Amir Khan and Kell Brook. Look, before I continue and go into it and give my thoughts on what I saw that night on Saturday night, shout out to both men, right? Wonderful, congratulations to Kell Brook. Finally got the win he's always been looking for, the fight he's always been looking for, which was against his biggest rival, Amir Khan. Put in a really good performance. And of course, shout out to Amir Khan, because Amir Khan showed some real heart. Yeah, he didn't stop trying. He kept trying to win the fight. Unfortunately for him, it was a bad night at the office, a really bad night at the office. And obviously for Kell Brook, you know, a really successful night. So shout out to both men for putting on a real good show and finally putting on the fight. Yeah, it might have been about, several years too late, but we have to take it for what it is right now. It was the best of Amir Khan versus the best of Kell Brook at this moment in time. Now, I wish I had done a fight night preview. I really wanted to. I just didn't get the time to do it. But a lot of things that played out on the night kind of were the kind of things that I already analysed for this fight. Now, one of the things that I did was I thought I want to take a common foe, a common opponent for both men, and talk about how they did against that individual, and that was Terence Crawford. So Amir Khan's real last competitive fight was against Terence Crawford, okay? And so was Kell Brook. Now, yeah, a lot of people will say, well, no, his last fight, Amir Khan, was Billy Dempsey. Well, man, that wasn't a competitive fight. That was just a payday out in the Middle East. I think it was in Saudi Arabia or Dubai or somewhere like that. I'm talking about real competitive world level competition that they went up against, and that was Terence Crawford. And there was a lot of things I noticed in that fight for both men that kind of played out in this fight. Now, let's start off with the ring walks first. Ring walks can sometimes tell you a lot, or sometimes we read too much into them. I felt Kell, when he came out to ring, yeah, there was an element of nervousness there from Kell, but I felt it was like a healthy level of nervousness. I felt like, it was more like that, those little jitters you get before you get in a ring for a fight. It was a big fight. He knew it was a big fight. He was banking everything on this. Yeah, this was his moment to get finally, shut this chapter with Kell Brook. With Amir Khan. Amir Khan, on the other hand, looked really, really nervous coming into the ring, and they kind of showed Amir walking right from his changing room straight into the ring, going through the back areas, the car park areas, or wherever it is, and walking right up to the ring and all that sort of stuff. And he was praying underneath his breath, and I've never really seen Amir Khan quite like that. You always see a level of nervousness from a fighter, but like he looked like as if he was praying, and the nervousness looked like it was like, this is it, this is the last dance for me kind of thing. And almost like maybe he knew that, he probably didn't have a chance against Kell, that he's not the same fighter he used to be, that he's shot to pieces, and that's not me trying to be disrespectful to him, but as if he knew, right, I've just got to go in there and try and make this happen, if that makes sense. That's the feeling I got from the ring walks, and it showed in the ring as well, because that nervousness played out into the fight as well. I don't know what a lot of people are going to say. A lot of people are going to say to me that, Amir was out of the ring for 2.5 years or 2 years or whatever it is. I don't know how long it was. It's quite long. I think Kell had been out of the ring quite a while as well, but Amir Khan had been out of the ring a lot longer. But I think if you go back and look at the Terence Crawford fight, I think the telltale signs in that Terence Crawford fight definitely were there, and we saw that situation get worse in the fight against Kell Brook. Now, yeah, he had Bo Mack in his corner, and shout out to Bo Mack and Bo Mack's team and Terence Crawford, Team Crawford, for the work they did with Amir Khan, because I think they must have done, like Dominic Ingle said, I have to agree with Dominic Ingle, Kell Brook's trainer, if they hadn't put all the road work in, all the training in the gym and all that sort of stuff, this fight would have been over within the first or second round. I'm being serious. Of course, Amir Khan's heart plays into it as well. One thing we could say about Amir Khan, and I've been critical of Amir in the past. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to sit here lying like I'm been his biggest fan or anything like that. I've been critical of him in the past, and I've taken some heat for it from his die-hard boxing fans in the past as well. But credit to them, because that helped with his durability in the fight. Whatever they did in that gym with him, helped him survive as long as he did. But a lot of things that I picked up, like I said, a lot of things I picked up in the fight against Terence Crawford for Amir Khan, even things like his legs, the balance of his legs, the strength of his legs. But not only that, the same old mistakes were there. He's 35 years old now, and he's had multiple trainers, world-class trainers, I might add, and none of them have ever been able to successfully iron out those faults of his. And you couldn't expect that from Bo Mack either. Bo Mack said it himself, because I can only take what he does now and try and do it better, and try and improve and try and iron out the things that are wrong. But again, and even Bo Mack said it, and I saw him in an interview, he goes, you can't change a fighter in 1 fight, 2 fights, even 3 fights. It takes multiple fights before a fighter may start changing their style and adapting their style and slightly, and adjusting their style slightly. I definitely think we saw that. If you look at if you go and watch Terence Crawford fight, Amir again, still reaching with the jab, reaching with his punches, dropping his hands, leaning back with his hands down, which left shots open for Kell Brook, and you can't do that against any, quality fighter, even especially Terence Crawford, even Kell Brook at this stage. Because if I broke down the Kell Brook versus Terence Crawford fight, there were a lot of positives in there for Brook, apart from the knockout, which I thought that might have been a bit of a psychological thing, because the jab hit him hard in the eye against Terence Crawford, which threw him into the ropes. But at the same time, I think when you go back and you look at the Terence Crawford fight for Amir Khan, a lot of the signs were there already, and Kell Brook just kind of exposed it even more on Saturday night and demolished Amir Khan. He still overreaches with the punches. He's still throwing punches and combinations without any thought. And that's one thing I've always been critical about Amir Khan throughout his career, is ring intelligence. When to throw a punch, or to be economical with his punches. Amir will come flying forward, throw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Meanwhile, his hands are faster than his feet. So it means his feet are always behind his hands, if that makes sense. So when he starts throwing those punches, he's leaning forward with his chin out, but his feet aren't quick enough to keep up with his hands. Do you understand what I mean? And that's what he needs to work on. I think Virgil Hunter tried to really drill that out of him, when he's working with Virgil Hunter. I think, many trainers have probably tried that with him, and it's just not worked. Sometimes, I suppose sometimes, some fighters' ring IQ levels and their understanding isn't as great as other fighters. Depends on how you've been schooled, I suppose, from amateurs and brought up, and who you've worked with throughout your career. You worked with the likes of Freddie Roach, and Freddie Roach's motto was, the best defense is your offense. When you're working with trainers like that, you're not helping the situation. Amir Khan, I suppose, and like I said, Virgil Hunter, tried to beat that out of him, and unsuccessfully he didn't. And obviously they parted ways. And let's be real, against the Terence Crawford fight, and I'm going to raise this, it's going to upset Amir Khan fans. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, but he got punched in the thigh. He didn't get punched in the nuts. He got punched in the thigh. He could have taken 5 minutes, and Virgil Hunter kept asking, I remember this, kept saying, no, do you want to carry on? What do you want to do? And Amir Khan wouldn't give him a straight answer, so Virgil pulled him out of the fight. When you don't give your trainer, especially someone like Virgil Hunter, you don't give him a straight answer, he's going to pull you out. And exactly what happened. And I felt like Amir at that point didn't want that fight. That was another telltale sign to me. And if you look at the if you look at the post-fight interview for Kell Brook, or interview, the press conference or whatever, you know, even his interviews, he's saying like, you know, even against Terence Crawford, I felt like I didn't know if I wanted to do it anymore, or like, was it there anymore? Was the love or the passion? He was referring to that kind of thing. Like, I don't know if I really wanted to box anymore, you know, and hence would probably explain, you know, Amir Khan 5 years before, or even 2 years before, would never ever pull out a fight, no matter what. Would never ever be, you know, reluctant to give a straight answer to his trainer when his trainer says like, you want to carry on, he'll be like, yeah, no, don't pull me out, I'm going, let's do this. You know, we saw it against Danny Garcia, even when Kenny Baylor stopped the fight, you know, against Garcia. He was so annoyed, he's like, no ref, no, like, kind of thing, you know. And we didn't see that against Terence Crawford. So I can kind of understand where Amir Khan's coming from with the whole like, I don't know if I wanted it anymore when he fought Terence Crawford, right? And he said the similar thing after being beaten up by Kell Brook. You know, so, you know, is the heart, the desire, and that's there for Amir Khan? Obviously not. He's obviously said that, look, he's probably going to call it a day and retire and leave it at that. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say that, you know, the result would have been any different if it had happened 4, 5, 6 years ago. I'm not trying to say that. It might have been, but I'm not. That's not what I'm trying to say here. I just think we would have seen a better version of Amir Khan a few years ago. But then again, the argument could be said that we would have seen a much better version of Kell Brook as well. So, you know, where people are saying that Kell's turned back the hands of time in this fight, you know, I'm kind of going to go into that a little bit, as, you know, don't necessarily think that. I don't necessarily think that's the case with Kell Brook either. I think Kell Brook should retire as well now and finish it on a high. He's made enough money. I don't think there's any need for him to carry on. He's got his, he was so happy after the fight, that smile on his face after beating Amir. Perfect place to finish mentally, physically, emotionally. Why go on and risk losing the next fight and then going back to feeling the way he was before the Amir Khan fight, if that makes sense. And this is the other thing that tells me that Amir Khan's kind of his ring intelligence isn't that great, and it never has been, is that the one thing Amir Khan doesn't do, he doesn't make adjustments in the ring, you know. And I didn't see anything different from him that I've seen from him in previous fights. You know, he doesn't make adjustments. He does the same thing repetitively over and over again. And for that reason, that's why we've seen him get knocked out and beaten up. But then there's some fights, you know, it has worked. You know, that blistering hand speed, that, you know, those combinations, you know, the footwork, the angles, and all that sort of stuff. We weren't seeing that on Saturday night. All of that was gone. You know, there's some great things Amir Khan does. You know, when he throws punches, he throws combinations, then he gets out, angles, pivots out, you know, changes angles, and it comes at you again. You know, that's hard to deal with. But I think at the same time, I think Virgil Hunter even said it with him once, you know, that I'm trying to get Amir to slow down. The speed is great, but the speed needs to be controlled. You know, Bo Mack said the same thing. Yeah, your speed needs to be controlled. You know, if each trainer that he's worked with is saying the same thing, you need to control your speed better. Like, don't go in there throwing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 punches, you know, because you're going to get caught. And a lot of the punches he was throwing on Saturday night were just not landing. And I just think we've definitely seen the loss of Amir Khan. You know, I don't think anyone's going to doubt that. Look, he's had a great career. You know, he's had ups, he's had downs. But the one thing you could say about Amir Khan, and I've been one of his biggest critics, I'm not going to lie. But the one thing you could say is that he's giving you guaranteed entertainment when he fights. That's why people tune in to see his fights. That's why he gets such high viewership numbers, such high pay-per-view numbers, because everyone knows there's going to be drama involved. Whether he wins or whether he loses, it's going to be exciting. It's going to be fun to watch. It's going to be entertaining, you know. I think Adam Smith says it best, you know, people are intrigued by the vulnerability of Amir Khan. And it was no different on Saturday night. So look, shout out to him. Look, showed great heart, showed, you know, courage in there to keep going. You know, when your guys, he could have quit. He could have gone into the corner and just said, hey, look, I'm done, man. I can't do it anymore. He didn't. He just kept coming back out and thought, you know, I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to keep trying, you know. And in the end, the ref had to pull it. I think the stoppage was perfect. A lot of people saying that, oh, no, it's too soon. Oh, man, he was going to get battered. Yeah, you could see it was starting to unfold. He was already getting completely dominated. And it would have got worse as the fight went on. And I think it was the right decision to stop the fight. And even Amir, when the referee stopped it, you didn't see that, oh no ref, why'd you do that for? He didn't get upset. It was like he just like, yeah, nodded his head, yeah, no, I get it, ref, I'm done. Yeah, he didn't argue with the referee as well. So that just tells you may have disagreed with it, but the fighter did not disagree with it at all. In short, basically what I think we saw on Saturday night from Amir Khan was basically what we saw against Terence Crawford. It was just it was just more deterioration in terms of his skill sets, his abilities, in things that he brings, the good things that he brings to his game. And then we just saw, an increase in the things that he does really badly, if that makes sense. That's what I felt we saw on Saturday night. It was like Terence Crawford performance, which wasn't that great in my opinion at all, times 10, times 20. He was even worse than he was in the fight against Terence Crawford, where I felt, if you look at both fights, and a lot of people say, well, Khan did better than Brook. Technically, yeah, I understand where you're coming from, because you're talking about, Khan lasted, 8 rounds? And Brook lasted, 4? But if you actually look and go and break down the performances, I feel Kell Brook did better. I felt he gave Terence Crawford more problems in those 4 rounds than Khan did in the whole 8 rounds he fought Terence Crawford. And go watch and analyse those fights. It's not necessarily how many rounds you lasted, it's what you did in the rounds that you were in there for with Terence Crawford. And you can go see those fights, and you can see even Terence was like struggling to work out Brook at times. Brook had his timing as well. You remember his timing, he's very patient, Brook. He throws his punches economically as well. He doesn't like to waste punches. And you can tell that's a thing that he's been taught by Dominic Ingle, like, don't waste your punches. You heard him in the corner. At times he got excited and he thought, when he hurt a Khan, he wanted to get out of there and rush him and really just bash him up and knock him out. And even Dominic Ingle was like, slow it down. Take your time. He's going to keep making these mistakes all night long. It's going to be there all night long. Yeah. Be patient. Yeah. And he was literally saying to him, be patient, be economical with your punches, make every punch count like you always do. And the one thing, when you look at Kell Brook, he is very economical with his punches. He's got a very good jab. He's got great timing. Yeah. So you could have all the speed in the world, as far as I'm concerned, against a fighter like that. But someone who's that well trained and that well schooled in terms of how to be patient, how to be economical, how to make adjustments, and we've actually seen Kell even switch up, and fight southpaw as well. So when someone's been that schooled, well schooled, your speed doesn't count for shit, is basically what I'm saying. Yeah. Especially when you're coming at him like Amir Khan does, which is like you're bone rushing him, in a sense, like you're rushing him and bang, machine gun style. Kell's just going to take those few steps back, make those adjustments, pivot and stuff, pivot out and throw counter shots as well. He's going to want that. He wants you to throw punches first. When you throw those punches, he's looking for those gaps. He's analysing you, and I felt he did that against Crawford as well. If you go and watch the fight, and really analyse both those fights. Amir Khan versus Terence Crawford and Kell Brook versus Terence Crawford. And don't go on the basis of rounds or who did a better job. Yeah? Look at the actual skill sets that were displayed in the ring against Terence Crawford. And you will see Brook gave a harder fight in terms of where Terence Crawford had to think, had to make adjustments, and really download information against Brook. And I think even if you look at the end of the fight, he literally walked up to Kell Brook and literally said to him, "Yo, man, great fight, kind of thing." Because there was an element of respect there, because he thought, "Yo, man, this guy's better than I thought." That's the impression I got. Yeah. And I think, Kell, in my opinion, if you go and watch the 4 rounds of Kell Brook against Terence Crawford and the 8 rounds of Amir Khan against Terence Crawford, I personally think Kell Brook, probably from a technical point of view, he was a little bit more difficult and better than Amir Khan was. And I think the only thing that Terence had a problem with, probably with Amir Khan, was that he comes at you with 3, 4, 5 punches, and it was about the speed and stuff. But even Bo Mack in that, if you go and watch it on the Top Rank channel, even Bo Mack, when they interview him during the rounds, he's like, "What about that speed?" He goes, "That speed ain't doing nothing. That speed's doing nothing." He goes, "Do you know what I mean? It's nothing. We can handle that." Yeah, he's going to walk onto shots pretty soon, which is what exactly started to happen. It just took a little bit of time for, I suppose, Terence Crawford to adjust to that speed that was coming at him. Whereas with Kell, Kell, he got caught with that jab, and I feel a little bit like that jab to the eye that Terence Crawford gave to him was It was a psychological thing, because when you go and look at that jab, he threw a hard right jab at at Amir Khan. At Kell Brook. And Kell Brook immediately kind of went into like this panic mode, fell into the ropes. It did hurt him, of course it hurt him, but immediately after that point, he was like, my eyes, let me cover up, you know? And I think there was an element of that. And I think if Dominic Ingle had probably been in Kell's corner for that fight, I think we probably would, I don't think he would have necessarily won the fight, because I think Terence Crawford is he's an amazing fighter. But I think he would probably have lasted a little bit longer and maybe control the psychological side of things a little better, rather than working with a trainer that you would ever work for. So yeah, there's and don't get me wrong, I could be wrong with what I'm saying. This is just my analysis. You know, you guys might have a difference of opinion, and that's cool. You can have your difference of opinion. You know, end of the day, we all see fights in our own way, in a different way. But I just think when you compare both Amir Khan's and Kell Brook's performances against Terence Crawford, I felt Kell in those 4 rounds, from a technical standpoint, did a better job and gave more difficulties and more things for Crawford to think about in the ring than Amir Khan did. So the big question is, does Kell Brook continue fighting, or does Kell Brook retire? For me, I personally think Kell Brook should retire. I think he's done whatever he's going to do in boxing. You know, he's had some successes and he's had some bad times. And don't get me wrong, I've been critical of Kell Brook's career as well. I think, you know, Kell Brook had the potential to be one of the best welterweights out there of his era, if he had been managed correctly, but at the same time, if he himself had made smart decisions. And I think I'm going to give Eddie Hearn some criticism here as well. Although Eddie might have been good for his career at times, I think there's some areas of his career where mistakes have been made. And I think that definitely the biggest mistake was that Triple G fight. A lot of people are going to start saying, oh, he's daring to be great, that's why he did it. Come on, we all know why he did it. He did it for the paycheck. What did he get for that fight? 4 million, 5 million, 6 million, something like that? He got a crazy amount of money for that fight, right? And that's why he did it. You know, taking a welterweight and moving him up 2 weight divisions is a tough job, yeah? Even against an average middleweight or a decent middleweight, that is, you know, tough. But to go up there against, you know, the force in the middleweight division at that time, which was Triple G, in his prime, you know, and actually expecting Kell to win that fight, come on, don't get me wrong, Kell showed some real skill sets in that fight. Of course he did. I told you, and this is why I told you, you know, Kell has great talent. He's always been very talented. He's always had good ring IQ, good fundamentals. You know, it showed in the fight against Triple G. But then when Triple G starts closing that ring off round by round, and then he finally nails you with that hard shot, it's done. You know, little welterweight is not going to last. And that's exactly what happened. It went 5 rounds, was it? And even I said back then, I said, look, this fight ain't going to go further than 6 rounds. Kell will get stopped, or the corner will throw the towel in. People are like, nah, you watch. All right, and look what happened. You know, that's what unfolded. He broke his eye socket. Next fight, he couldn't have a voluntary or anything like that. He had to fight Errol Spence Jr. Did pretty well in the first few rounds against Errol Spence Jr. Bam, when Errol started turning it on and cracked him in his other eye, orbital wound went. What was it, the 10th round? He finally took a knee and counted himself out. You know, those moments, especially the Triple G moment, were the absolute points of his career. Were those points of his career which, in a sense, ruined his career. You know, as a promoter, and this is where I'm critical of Eddie Hearn, as a promoter, how could you responsibly allow your welterweight fighter, who has the potential to go on and maybe be the best welterweight in the world? Because that's how a lot of people, even in America, they were looking at him like that. I remember listening to, you know, the US YouTube channels and stuff like that, talking about, you know, the potential of the potential of Kell Brook, that he could have gone on and, you know, he could be, you know, one of those top dogs in the welterweight division against the Thurmans and etc. And he could have, but that Triple G fight just destroyed him. You know, emotionally, physically, in terms of his confidence. You know, when you go up against a bigger man like that and you get, you know, you sustain an injury like that, it's going to play on you. And I don't think until the other night, Saturday night, I don't think we saw Kell Brook ever recover, psychologically from that Triple G loss, and then he went and lost to Ross Spence Jr. That made it even worse for him. I believe he had some battles outside of the ring, with mental health and stuff like that on the back of those fights. And it's such a shame that he had such a talent in this country who could have gone on and really made a name for himself at welterweight. I know discipline was an issue with him as well, because he liked to, between fights, he liked to, fill up on the naughty stuff and eat the wrong foods and stuff like that. However, that's about being a good trainer and even being a good promoter and say, look, Kell, you need to stay on point. Do you know what I mean? It's either your career or not. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. But look, we can go back over the past, what's happened and stuff. I'm just trying to give you an outline kind of thing of what's going on with Kell Brook, and it's a real shame what's happened with Kell Brook, because I still think, if we turn back the hands of time and you took out that Triple G fight, I think he could have potentially even beat Ross Spence Jr., because he showed real good signs in the earlier rounds. But once that eye socket went, the other one, and it was the other eye this time, that was it, it's done. And I know a lot of American fans are going to say, you're making excuses. I'm not making excuses. These are things that play into the psyche of a fighter. Yeah, and if you're a real boxing fan, you'll understand what I'm talking about. But anyway, look, but he's done decent. He had the Sean Porter moment. He crossed the pond and he beat Sean Porter in his own backyard in a split decision, picked up that IBF belt. He's made a lot of money along the way, in certain fights he's had. He's definitely made a lot of money from this fight. What more do you want to do? I don't think he should go in there and fight Chris Eubank Jr. Not because I don't think he's good enough skill sets and stuff like that. But let's say if he was to lose that fight. And remember, Chris is a bigger man. Again, you're putting him in the bigger man. Right? Same thing that happened with Triple G. Only now you got Kell Brook at a point in his career where, let's be fair, Kell's done. Yeah, Kell looked really good on Saturday night. Yes, he did. And a lot of people are jumping on that. Right? He looked really good on Saturday night. But against what version of Amir Khan? Of course he looked great, because you're going up against the best of Amir Khan right now, and the best of Amir Khan right now is shot to pieces. He's done. He's got nothing left. There's nothing left in the tank. And everyone was saying it. Everyone, not just me, everyone. Johnny Nelson, all these experts, these pundits, they were all saying the same exact thing, right? It was going to be about who had more left in the tank. And Kell Brook clearly had more left in the tank against Amir Khan. Amir Khan was running on empty, near enough. Right? So you're basing the performance of Kell Brook, who we know is past his best, against Amir Khan, who's past his best. Kell Brook, who has a little something left in his tank, against Amir Khan, who virtually has nothing left in his tanks because he's taken such a beating in the ring over the years. Okay? And now you're saying Kell Brook looked great, put him in there, Chris Eubank Jr. Guy who's not really had any hard fights. He's not really taken any punishment in the ring. He's still showing to be very hungry. He's working with Roy Jones Jr. to improve himself technically as a boxer. Do you know what I mean? You've got to take all these things into consideration. And he's a bigger man who probably hits harder. Is it a smart move? Absolutely not. I wouldn't even put Kell Brook in there with Conor Benn right now, because Conor is young and hungry. Yeah, you saw how he did Chris Algieri, and don't get me wrong, I know Chris Algieri has a 14 years and he's done as a fighter. I think they just pulled him out of retirement. Listen, get in the ring, yeah, do your best, but we need a name on our record, and that's why Algieri was in the ring. Because even I thought, I was weird. I thought, why would Algieri suddenly just come out of retirement, or not even out of retirement, but suddenly come out and say, hey, I'll fight Conor. They must have paid him handsomely for that in order to get a name of a former world champion on Conor Benn's record. But that's another thing altogether, right? Okay, that's another thing. I don't want to get sidetracked here. But again, Conor is hungry. He's ferocious. He's going to come after you. Yeah, he's durable. He hasn't taken as much punishment in the ring either. Is it a smart move? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think Kell is done. I think, and this is just my honest opinion, nothing but respect for both fighters, Amir Khan and Kell Brook. They've given us some great moments in the ring, but I think Kell Brook is done. If you put him in there with a Conor Benn, yeah, I think it could turn out to be ugly, because Conor is one of those grit your teeth and I'm going to smash you kind of fighters. It reminds me of his dad a lot. And even Chris Eubank, you know, he's still trying to show he's showing like he's hungry, like he wants a world title shot. Look, we never know with Chris Eubank Jr., you know, we never know. Yeah, because, you know, there's a lot of people back, even I thought Chris Eubank Jr. might have a chance against George Groves. Do you know what I mean? Damn, did I get that wrong? Because George Groves just destroyed him. So, I don't know, I could be wrong. Maybe Kell can do it against Chris Eubank Jr. Who knows? But he's got someone different in his corner. He's got more consistency in his corner. In Roy Jones Jr., he's got more stability in his corner now. Do you know what I mean? His father's not playing much of a part in the corner anymore. Do you remember he used to interfere a lot? Now you can see that Roy's turned around and said, hey, listen, I need you to let me train your son. And you handle the management side of things. Of course, you make the fights, of course. But I need full control over his training. You know, and you can tell there's that understanding there. But I don't know whether it's a good idea for Kell. I think it's a massive risk. And I think Kell really should just now think about retiring, hanging up the gloves and finishing on a high. Okay, well, that was my thoughts on Saturday night's action between Amir Khan and Kell Brook. Once again, shout out to both men. Congratulations to Kell Brook for his victory. Big smile on his face. He feels satisfied, and I don't think we haven't seen Kell that happy after a fight for a long, long time. So, you know, it was important to him to win that fight. I think mentally, emotionally, physically, everything, you know, all of the above. Amir Khan, you know, listen, definitely a smart idea to retire now. I think he's done everything he can do in boxing. He's given us some great nights in boxing. I think they're memorable nights that, you know, in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, you'll still be watching and loving. And appreciate what he has done and what he has delivered. You know, like I said, you know, both fighters, I've been critical of both fighters over the years. But, you know, respect to both men. You know, Amir went out on his shield. And, you know, Kell got the victory. But in my opinion, I still stand by what I say. I think both men should retire. I think Kell should definitely retire, you know, and hang up the gloves and finish on a high, kind of like Calf Roch did against George Groves in the rematch. And I think Amir Khan's got nothing to be ashamed about. He's had a great career. I think he should hang it up. I think both men should now just go forward and dedicate their lives to their family. You know, they've made a lot of sacrifices, I'm sure, over the years. And they're not in their prime. They're in their mid-30s. It's only probably going to get worse from here, in my opinion. I don't think either one of them can really turn back the hands of time. I think leave it at that. Look, let me know what you think. If you had a difference of opinion to me, I'm sure a lot of you will. But of course, I love to hear them as always. You know, like I said, look, just keep it clean. If you don't agree with me, don't get all mad about it. You know, this is just my opinion. You know, but leave a comment, you know, as to why you disagree with me and how you broke it down. I'm always willing to read sensible comments that make sense, not the kids out there who like to get all mad and emotional and start, you know, screaming and shouting and calling names and all that sort of stuff, all the childish stuff that you see on social media these days. But yeah, like I said, leave your comments. As always, guys, like, share and subscribe. Until next time, this is Cyphbox reminding you to keep it real.